Guitar intervals, C major, A minor, and related modes. This time focusing in on the G Mixolydian mode, measuring the intervals around the G note, which is located 3rd string down from the top of the guitar on the 5th fret. Part number 2. Remembering part of our objective is to get all of our resources orientated in the same direction, making them as easy on the eyes from the perspective of the player of the guitar as possible. So therefore, for example, my guitar will look like I'm left-handed, but we just flipped it around to mirror your perspective from behind the guitar. When we are behind the guitar, we've got the fretboard on the left-hand side, the low or heavy string, the one closest to the ceiling up top, going from left to right towards the body of the guitar. Similarly, our Excel worksheet, this is going to represent the low or heavy string, the one closest to the ceiling, top to bottom, left to right of our worksheet, being as though we took the guitar and just imprinted the strings on the screen. We're continuing on looking at the Mixolydian mode, focusing in on the intervals using the G note, which is located on the 5th fret, 3rd string down from the top of the guitar. Let's do a quick recap of the Mixolydian mode, how it relates to the major mode, and how we can basically get these shapes orientated in our mind. So if we go back up to the major scale, we note that we can learn the scales and the shapes basically 3 main ways. We can basically just learn the shape itself, and we can play the shape up and down and learn it that way. And then we can just alternate where the starting point is in the shape, allowing us to alternate between the major scale and related modes: Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and then the Locrian if we wanted to play in the Locrian. So we can learn everything that way, and then we could of course shift the shapes up. So if I wanted to then play a D major scale and the related modes, then I can just shift the whole shape up as we would in an Excel worksheet. Everything is moving in a relatable position. It's difficult to do that in practice with your fingers because your fingers don't work that way. So it's not like you can just go from, oh, I know this shape, I'm just going to shift it up and my fingers are just naturally going to see all those. But from a theory standpoint, it'll be a lot easier to get your fingers orientated towards the shape if you recognize the shape in one position, and then you can recognize that shift up of the shape and then start to orientate your muscle memory and where you're located physically on the guitar around that. Then we can also learn by learning the formula, which usually we learn the formula of the major scale first, that being like whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and so on and so forth. And that means that we're going to measure from every note, and then we would come up with the same shape. And so that's great, but we always learn that typically from the major scale. We would also like to learn that formula possibly from every other starting point, which is basically the same formula, but you're starting in a different position. Therefore, it's a different formula from that perspective. And then we can also learn it from intervals, meaning we're going to pick the starting point, which if you're looking at the major scale, which will be the one of the major scale, and measure all the distances from that particular point. And then we can also do that with all the related modes. So we could pivot around all the other notes and look at the same shape, build the same shape, by building the interval around the circumference, in essence, of the note that we're saying is the tonic of the chord. So that's what we're doing. We're looking at we're looking at a shape which is possibly one of the most common shapes for most guitarists. C major, which has a related minor, A minor. A lot of guitar I learned playing in A minor because you have this shape which I call position number 1. And if you add the 2 other notes, that would be a minor because you're starting from the A. You can move that shape around and play, the minor scale in other places. But if I focus in on any other note in there, I can play all the related modes. So if I focused on the C, it'd be a major scale in essence, and so on and so forth. So we're going to look at that shape, which we've now extended across the whole, fretboard. And then look at the intervals related to it. Once we learn the interval positions, those are also, in essence, movable shapes. And they also, of course, are going to be very helpful for chord construction, for us to analyze chords, figure out what's happening, and then construct chords. All right, so In the major scale, we've got a perfect first, a 2-note away major second, a 4-note away major third, a 5-note away perfect fourth, a 7-note away perfect fifth, a 9-note away major sixth, and an 11-note away major seven. We're now looking at the fifth mode, and I'm sorry I keep on saying this incorrectly. I said it wrong the last presentation a couple times. I hope I didn't mess anyone up. You can see here it's the fifth position relative to the major scale. Therefore, I'm going to name it with an absolute numbering of the fifth mode. And to me, I think that's really useful to do, even though I recognize that numbering the modes is a relative activity, right? Because I'm numbering them based on the key of the major scale. Even saying the major scale itself is not really special, except that we made it special, right? It's just one of the modes. It's the Ionian mode. You can use any other mode as your reference point, but in Western music, we use the major scale. So it seems to me we might as well name the modes based on that key, and that will help us to orientate the memorization. So if I know it's the fifth mode, I know that it would be constructing a major chord because it's going to have a major third in it as opposed to a minor third. And beyond that, I also want to know what's the difference between intervals constructed from the Mixolydian compared to the major, because there's only going to be one interval difference. And if I know that, then I can interplay. I can pivot. That's one way I can pivot, by saying I can go from G Mixolydian, the shape I know possibly, identify the different interval, and just simply change that interval to then convert to a G major scale. And once I'm in a G major scale, you can then say, well, what are all the related modes to a G major scale? So that's one way that you can kind of open up the fretboard rather than just shifting. Most people, when I first learned things as an accountant, I thought, I'll learn this shape and then I'll just learn that it's a spreadsheet and I can just move the shape up. That's great. You could do it that way. But you can also think about it, in intervals, and that might be another perspective to kind of look at it. So in any case, we're going to go down here to the Mixolydian, which I'm going to call absolute mode number 5. And by me knowing it's the fifth mode, and I know that the 1, 3, 5, the 1, 4, 5 are major chords, I also know that they are major modes, both chords and modes being defined as major or minor based on the third, except for the weird Locrian that also has a flat fifth. It's basically a minor with a flat fifth, right? But I know that then this is going to be a major mode. So what's the different interval on this one? Well, it's only going to be the seventh over here, which has a minor seventh, which is kind of the bluesy thing. That's why when you think about a bluesy kind of thing on a major blues as opposed to a minor blues, then you're usually thinking a 1, 4, 5 kind of progression. Most people actually think of it kind of like you're playing in this shape, which you're kind of often thinking as like a minor shape, a pentatonic shape oftentimes, rather than all 7 notes. And then you're like bending into from the third to the minor third to the major third, and then possibly throwing in a leading tone to go back home, which would be here going back to the G, which would be playing around with the minor 7 to the major 7. So that's kind of weird though, but you can also think of it as though you're in the major scale, like G major, but you're basically throwing in a flat 7 and then playing around again with the minor third versus the major third. But if you replace obviously the 7 from a major 7 to a minor 7, you are basically playing a Mixolydian mode. So you can basically call it a Mixolydian mode. Now, of course, when you go from the 1 to the 4 to the 5, there's the question of are you gonna play the 7, the dominant 7, or the major 7, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to get into all of that now, but that's going to be the general idea. So this is a very popular kind of mode, even though people might not actually say all the time that they're playing in Mixolydian mode, because they're going to say I'm playing in some kind of major blues, and they might be thinking of it as though they're just tweaking the pentatonic scale, or they might be thinking of it as though they've got the major scale and they're just kind of throwing in a flat 7, right? And so there's multiple ways that you can kind of think of it, but one way you could think of it is the Mixolydian. So that means that if you learn the Mixolydian here and you play it, you're basically playing in G major a G major, often like a bluesy sound if you want to throw that in, which might not be the most popular bluesy key because a major blue sometimes is easier to play in an E, because then you don't have to reach as far with this reachy thing, or you might play in A major, right? So because that's nice, easier to reach a little bit on A major if you're reaching up, up the guitar like five frets out or so, something like that. But G is going to be in our shape here when we learn an A minor. And so if you can learn and stretch out your fingers to play this Mixolydian, especially like this stretch, get your pinky out there on the G, then it'll be easier than any other note, because it's easier to reach up there if you're playing an A major. And you're playing in E, you don't have to do it so much because you get it's kind of cheating. You've got that open E. So that's going to be the general idea. So we're learning the intervals around this G note right here. And so we did the perfect first. We did the 2-note away major second. We're now on the 4-note away major third. And then we have the 5-note away perfect fourth, which is the same in a major and minor. Typically we've got the 7-note away perfect fifth, which is usually the same in the major and the minor. We got a 9-note away major sixth, which is equivalent to what it's in the major. It's usually flipped in a minor mode. And then we have the distinctive minor 7, which is unusual for a major mode. That's the distinctive note. So that means that this F right there got shifted back. And that means that, see, it's not a leading tone. Most major scales have a leading tone going home, and this one doesn't, which gives you that tensiony feel, and it allows you another note that you could add as a leading tone to go home, just like we do in a minor scale oftentimes, just to add that note to give you, it's out of key, but it gives you a leading feel. Okay, that's enough rambling. Let's go on to the third. So on a 4-note away major third, this is the distinguishing characteristic between a major key and a minor key. The third represents the fact that it's the third note in the scale. The fact that it says 4 notes away, that's the actual distance. 4-note away is a major, 3-note away is a minor, noting that when you're in the Mixolydian, the minor is basically the blues note, right? That's the added note that you can kind of play with. So that means, so if we're going on to like this B, that's the major, you can kind of shift back here and kind of go and then like go into that B, right? That's going to be one of the things that you can play with if you're doing this Mixolydian, often bluesy kind of sound. Okay, so that means if we look for that over here on the same string, it's out here. So it's a bit more of a reach. This is why the major's a little bit more reachy this way. So I go up to here. So it's a little bit more reachy as opposed to if it was a minor. And then you can slide, right? Now that reach is a little bit easier to do over here because you don't have to reach quite as far. It's kind of hard to slide with your pinky sometimes, but if you're up here, that's about as far as a reach you can go because you have longer frets. But if you actually practice stretching your fingers, like just stretch your fingers, and then I think even an average sized hand like mine with, I don't have super stubby fingers, but also not super like long guitar fingers, you can reach it, I think. So if you practice that, totally doable. So we have that. Then if we go up, if I go up, then we're going to find it right here. So wait a sec, that's not it. What am I talking about? It's right here. And you want to use the orange for going up. Man, you should just start over. No, I'm not starting over. Okay, so then this is going to be, if I count this out, it's going to be -5, 4, it's going to be -5, and then 4, -5, 6, 7, 8. Why? Because if I'm going above, I have to look for the inverse distance. So if I'm looking for a 4-note away major third, 12 minus 4 is 8. So the inverse distance is an 8 note away, which would be a minor ninth. So the distance is going to be 5, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8 is how I usually do it. So if I was over here, it would be negative 5, negative 6, 7, 8. So if I went from top to bottom, from the B to the G, it would be an 8 note away, which would be a minor 6. But if I go from the bottom to the top, it would then be a 4 note away major third. So that means that if I go up one string, the 4 note away major third will always be 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line. And by the way, just on this bluesy thing while we're doing it, you have the minor right behind it, right? So you could kind of play with that and say, there's the minor. And then try to slide into it. It's probably the not most common. Maybe I go from bottom to top. It's not the most common slide going from bottom to top on that one, but you know, you can kind of see if you can work that in. So in any case, so if I go up one string, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the B string. So if I was on the B string, then this whole tectonic plate would be shifting up, so it's going to be a further distance. So if I go up one string, the 4 note away minor third is 3 frets back unless I'm crossing the fault line, which only happens on the B string. If I'm going up one string, then the 4 note away major third is 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back. So hopefully I didn't totally mess that up terminology-wise and say the wrong thing again. Let me know if I do. You can tell me and tell me to be more careful. I don't want to learn the wrong thing. That's not good. So let's go up. What if I go up 2 strings? So once again, I'm looking for the 4 note away minor third, and I look for the inverse distance, which was 12 minus 4, so it's an 8 note away minor 6 distance. So it's going to be negative 5, negative 6, and then 6, 5. Wait a sec. It's going to be negative 5. Negative 10, and then 9, 8. Let's count that up over here. So if I was here, it'd be 5, 10, 9, 8. So if I went from top to bottom, that B to that G, that would be a 8 note away, which would be a minor 6. If I go from bottom to top, that would be a 4 note away major third. And again, the minor third is right behind it. So if I was going to try to do my slidey thing, you know, I could play this whole thing, and if that B plays open, if that A plays out open, that's okay, kinda, because it's the second, or I can try to mute it maybe, and then I can be like, it's kind of funky sound, doesn't sound quite right with that A kind of messes it up, but it kind of works. Maybe I can put my finger over here and grab that F, which is going to be the 7, and see if I can still slide. Mess with it. And the question is, should I use this finger? I might mute it easier, or this finger. Yeah, it's kind of something to kind of play with, I guess. But in any case, let's go below. That sounded horrible. I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm going to go down one. We're going to go down to here. It's going to be negative 5 and then 4 back one. So that's going to be the most common major third, most likely. So we go down one and back one. So boom, boom. So that's going to be the 4 note away major third position. And so again, if I went back another one, you'd have the minor, right? So now you can do this kind of thing. Maybe I could slide up from here to here. Be like, and the question would be, should I do it with this finger? Or
this finger. So should I put this finger on the root or this finger on the root? And you can think about what you can reach up here. Either way. I don't know. Something to play with, though. There's something there. If you were good at stuff, if like you can make it work, you can make it work if you mess with it long enough. So that means that if I go down one string, the 4-note away major third is always 1 fret back, unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string. In which case, if I go down one string, because this whole tectonic plate shifted forward, the 3-note away minor third would be on the same fret. Okay, so there's that. All right then. Let's go down to the next one. If I go down 2 strings and cross the fault line, it's going to be 5 and then 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. So let's count it out here. If I go down 2, 5, 10, shifting up, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4 to the open B, Now that's interesting because you also have a open G right here, right? So I can play all 3 of those strings. If I just hold down this G, I can pick up that third as just an open, which is interesting. But here we're gonna say if I go down, so let's say if I didn't cross the fault line, I would be like up here, which is gonna happen if I go down 2 strings. I can be on the E or the A string and not cross the fault line. So if I was going here back, no, wait a sec, to here, right? So if I go down 2 strings, the 4-note away major third will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frets back, or it'll be right in the middle, which means it would also be 6 frets forward. But if I cross the fault line, which would happen like 2 out of the 4 times I could do it, and I went down 2 strings crossing the fault line, then the 4-note away major third would only be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back. All right, so let's do the next one. Let's go down another. So we're at the bottom one. So we can say, okay, so if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, it would be 5, 10, 15, 15 minus 12 is 3, and then 4. Counting it here, we can go 5 and then 10, 15, 15 minus 12 is 3, 4. So we have that. Now you could say, why don't I count it from the top? And it might be a little bit faster because it's only 2 strings up. You could do that because I could say, well, let me go up to this string because this string's the same as that string tone-wise. But to go up, I'd have to say, well, I want to look for a 4-note away minor third, so I have to look for the inverse distance, which is 12 minus 4 of 8. So it would be 5, 10, or negative 5, negative 10, 9, 8, and that would be the same down here. So I could think about it that way as well. And if I was going down here, could I play with this minor third? Like if I'm reaching down here and be like, I could try to mute everything. Or I could try to bar this whole thing off. Or maybe I go back to the third right here and see if I could still reach the third down here. Obviously, I haven't played with that much, but you can try to work in a a slide from the bluesy minor there. So if I didn't cross the fault line, I would have been like up here, and then to here. Oh wait, that's crossing the fault line. If it would have to be on the top string, not to cross the fault line. I didn't want to get too close to the other one. But if I didn't cross the fault line, then, and I go down 3 strings, then the 4-note away major third will be 1 fret forward. But if I cross the fault line, which is going to happen 2 out of the 3 times I could possibly go down 3 strings, crossing the fault line, going down 3 strings and crossing the fault line, the 4-note away major third will then be pushed up, pushed out with the tectonic plate to be 1-2 frets forward. All right, makes perfect sense. Let's go. So let's go to the next one. So we have the 5th on the next one. Did I do all of it already? I think I did. Let me try a joke first. I have some jokes piling up here. I apologize for the jokes. Not really though. I'm not apologizing. I'm not asking if I'm right about the thing or apologizing. That's when they get you. When you start apologizing for stuff and they're like, well, you better keep on apologizing. It's like, you better apologize for something stupid. It's like, I don't feel like I need to apologize for that. No, you do need to Okay. So let's just go to the joke. All right, let's just go to the joke. So I've been thinking, is it worse to be called a nut or a nutcase? You know, if someone called you, they're like, you're a nut, versus like, you're a nutcase. I'm not sure which is worse, because I'm almost thinking that being called a nutcase is kind of like being called a shell, though. You know, if you call a nutcase, it's like you're not even good enough to be called a nut. You're just like the housing of a nut. You're not even a nut. You're the nut housing. People call me the nut housing sometimes. It's like, whatever, dude. But wait a second. Hold on a second. I think by calling me a nutcase, they're trying to call me a scrotum. That's not cool, man. Wait a second. If I'm a nutcase, then you're just like a single nutcase hair. You're a stinky nutcase hair. That's what you are. If I'm a nutcase. Anyways, that's it. I think I can do it better, but that's what I got. All right. Back to business. Let's go to the next one here. So we're going to go to the 4th. So it's a 4-note away perfect 4th, which we've seen before, because the perfect 4ths are in both the majors and the minor, and the Mixolydian, being a major mode, is no exception. But we haven't looked at the 4th from this position, right? So the 4ths that we've seen before on the top 2 strings will be the same unless we cross the fault line, because all these positions are movable, but we haven't seen this top string comparison yet, because we haven't been able to go up 2 strings unless we think about ourselves going around the top of the guitar, which we're trying not to do too much because that's a little bit confusing, although I think it's a good exercise. All right. I choked. The coffee went down the wrong. I'm choking on the coffee. All right. So we're looking for a 5-note away. That's the distance for the perfect 4th, which is the 4th related, which is the related position to the major. So if it's 5 notes away, we could go up and reach up on the same string to right there, that C on the 10th fret. So that's about as far as we can reach while still holding down both fingers for someone with an average size hand on the higher part of the guitar. And then we could go, although I stretch my fingers, I'm really stretchy because I'm not like really stretchy, but like I've been working on stretching. Not everything. I can stretch kind of, but I'm talking about my fingers can be stretchy. So if we go up one, then if I go up a string, then we're looking for the 5-note away perfect 4th. So I have to look for the inverse distance whenever I go up. Therefore, it's going to be 12 minus 5, which is, what is 12 minus 5? It's going to be 7. So 7. So -5, 6, 7. So a 7-note away perfect 5th is the inverse of a 5-note away perfect 4th. So if I was right here, it would be 5, wait a sec. I'm right here. This is going to be -5, 6, 7. So if I went from top to bottom, C to G, we got that familiar power chord shape. which would be the 7 note away perfect fifth. But if I go to bottom to top, then from the perspective of the G, we're playing a 5 note away perfect fourth. Therefore, if I go up 1 string, the 5 note away perfect fourth will always be 2 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which could only happen on the B string down here, in which case, if I went up 1 string, it would be a longer distance because the fault line shifted the G up. And so therefore, if I go up 1 string and cross the fault line, the 5 note away perfect fourth in that case would be 3 frets back. Alrighty. So let's do the next one. Let's go up another string. Boom. Up to here. So now we're going to say inverse distance. So I'm looking for a 5 note away perfect fourth. By the way, that's the same as saying an 11th from a chord construction. Why? If I think about it as just a circle and not octaves. Why? Because when we chord construct, we skip every other note, 1, 3, 5, and then to the 7. And then we have to go around the horn. Skipping the next note brings us back to the 2, but we don't want to call it a 2 because that would be confusing because then we're skipping every other note. So we want to call it a 9 and then the 11. So the 11 is equivalent to the 4. So the 11th is equivalent to a 5 note away perfect fourth or major perfect fourth. Okay. So then if I go up, I did that. Did I do that? So it's going to be -5, -10, 9, 8, 7. Let's count it up here. So up 1, -5, -10, 9, 8, 7. So top to bottom. C to G would be a 7 note away perfect fifth. Therefore, bottom to top, G to C would be a 5 note away perfect fourth. That means that if I go up 2 strings, the 5 note away perfect fourth will be 1, 2, 3 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on either of the 2 bottom strings, the B or the E. So for example, if I was on that G that's on the E string, then I'll go up 2 strings. It's going to be a shorter distance. So if I cross the fault line, then it's going to be if I cross the fault line, if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 5 note away perfect fourth would only be 2 frets forward. Okay? And then if I go down a string, it's going to be right below. Now I can just count it normal. 5 note away perfect fourth or 5 note away perfect 11th is just going to be right underneath because that's just a distance of 5 notes. So just boom, boom, or right there. 5 note difference. So if I go below, if I go 1 string down, the 5 note away perfect fourth will be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which can only happen on the G string. So let's just look at that G string on the open note, in which case, because the tectonic plate shifted to the right, if I go down 1 string, then the 5 note away perfect fourth will be 1 fret forward. Okay, and so let's go. So if we go down 2 strings looking for a 5 note away perfect fourth, it would be 5 and then 10 up this way, then 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. And so let's do that over here. It's gonna be 5 and then 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. So boom, boom. So here to here. Whoops. Okay. So if I go down 2 strings, then the 5 note away perfect fourth will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back if I cross the fault line. But if I don't cross the fault line, which is going to happen on the E or the A string, so if I'm on like this A string and I go down 1, no, I would still cross the fault line. I need to be on the top string. So that's going to be like way out here. If I want to look for a G, it's going to be like way out here somewhere. Let's go from here down. I'm going to go down 3 strings to that C. So if I go down 3 strings, then the 5 note away perfect fourth is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back unless I cross the fault line, in which case the 5 note away perfect fourth is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back. Now let's go to the last one, the C down here. That's going to be 5. I'm looking for a 5 note away perfect fourth or 5 note away perfect 11, 5, 10, and then 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, 4, 5. So that's one way I can count it. So I could say from here, 5, 10, and then, wait a sec, 5, 10, 15, and then 15 minus 12 is 3, 4, 5, boom. And I can also count upwards if I wanted to look at this string, which is one string closer. So if I knew what it was up there, either shape-wise or counting it, if I wanted to count it up, I'd have to look for the inverse distance. So a 5-note away perfect fourth, inverse has 7 notes away, 7-note away, 5, -10, 9, 8, 7, and that's going to match the same C down here. Therefore, if I go down 1, 2, 3 strings, the 5-note away perfect fourth will be 1, 2, 3 frets forward when I cross the fault line, but I wouldn't always, if I was on the top string, I wouldn't cross the fault line. I kind of feel like I messed up that last one somehow. I don't know if I messed up the last one somehow. I don't know. If I go down 3 strings, then the 5-note away perfect fourth will be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, and because the fault line shifts the notes up, if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect fourth will be 3 frets forward. All right, so that's the general idea. Let's stop it there. Try one more joke before we go. Here's a really stupid one. Have you ever heard the word chutzpah? Chutzpah as a word, kind of like gold. The person has chutzpah. I'm guessing at the etymology of the word possibly came from like when like a little animal, like a hedgehog type animal called a chutz had, a really small paw with like no claws, but he was really aggressive. So that's why they came up with the term. It's like a chutzpah because he's a really aggressive chutz, like chipmunk or something, but has really small paws and no claws. So it's like so this person's like a chutz. It's like a chutzpah. All right, that's my etymology lesson for today. You possibly don't want to put it on any test questions. Might not get you the right answer, but I feel like it's plausible, something to drill down on.